Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'll be reviewing the film The Brutalist. So, for this movie, I heard a lot of great things about it. It was up for a lot of awards, and opposite of Emilia Perez, it won Best Drama at the Golden Globes, where Emilia Perez won Best Musical, which I'm still very annoyed by. But anyway, this movie had a limited release for about a month. It's finally coming to more theaters this weekend, which is pretty exciting. I think a lot of people will finally check it out. And it's crazy how well this movie's doing, actually, because even though it was only released in about 60 theaters, I think, nationwide, it still made more money than Better Man, which was released in like over 1,000 theaters. So that really just shows how many people are flocking out to see this movie. And over last weekend, I went to see it in New York City. It was showed in both 70mm and IMAX. I chose IMAX due to the time. And normally time wouldn't be that much of an issue, but because this movie is a whole 3.5 hours long, which is like, I want to say one of the longest movies released in like a really long time. Maybe Killers of the Flower Moon would be up there, and The Irishman. At least in theaters, you don't see that often, and it's just so long, which I know can be a big thing with like, it's so long, like 3.5 hours. I don't want to see that. I think if it's the right movie, it can fit. I still defend Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was released on streaming a few years ago. I mean, that's really more of like a mini-series in my eyes. Like, I don't really see that as a movie, but I think it works. Like, the 4 hours in that goes by pretty fast. Meanwhile, like, The Irishman, 3.5 hours, to me, that movie just goes by very slowly. I actually had a hard time watching that in one sitting. Killers of the Flower Moon, though, also like 3.5 hours, went by pretty nicely. I mean, it was slow, but it went by pretty good. So I was curious to see how this movie would do with that. But as I was saying, though, 3.5 hours definitely plays a time factor into like, how much time I want to spend in the movie theater, when in the day. And you got to really pace the whole thing around it, because the 70mm time was like right before dinner time. So that would mean I wouldn't get out till like 8 p.m. And it's like, if you're in before dinner time, that means you're not eating anything. This movie worked out. I went to like a 2:30 showing. It ended around 6:30. So that was pretty good. And this was a packed showing, by the way. This is in, like, the big IMAX in New York City. This is, like, one of the biggest screens in all of North America. And it fits, like, probably, like, 500-600 people in there. And it was packed. Like, maybe a few seats open in, like, the front. But it really, overall, like, this was a very packed showing. Nearly sold out, which is crazy for a 3+ hour drama about a foreign Jewish architect moving to America after the Holocaust. That's mind-blowing to me. Like, this is not, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer or The Dark Knight or Inception or whatever. Like, it's nothing, like, it's not a blockbuster. This is a drama in IMAX. You're paying, like $25 if you don't have A-list to go watch a drama on the biggest screen with the loudest sound. Like, it's not necessary to see this movie in IMAX, by the way. Again, I would have chosen the 70mm probably. If you don't know what the 70mm is, it's like, they're actually showing it on film. Like, nowadays, it's digital projection, whereas, you could see it actually shown in film, which would be a really great experience. I mean, I did it a few times in IMAX 70mm with Dune Part 2 and, like, some Christopher Nolan movies as well. It's great. I mean, it's the clarity on that thing is amazing. But I think just getting to see this movie on a big screen was still really cool. I mean, not necessary at all, but still nice. But in any case, a lot of people clearly wanted to see this movie to get on the buzz, I'm sure, and because, it's almost Oscar season, and everything's just really like, this movie's getting a lot of good buzz. And understandably so. It is a very good movie, I have to say. In the first half, honestly, I was thinking to myself, this may be one of the best movies of 2024, like, probably within my top 5, honestly, like, easily, like, top 5 of the year. It's super well made. The direction is excellent by Brady Corbett. I haven't seen anything else he's done, but I would be very curious, too, after this. It's a very, very good movie, visually, and, the direction and stylistically and all that stuff. It's a visual story, not heavy on dialogue. I mean, I looked at the script. The script is only, like, 100-something pages, and when you have like a page a minute on average, that really says like this movie's like double the length of the script. So a lot of stuff happening visually that's not so much on the page. But what this movie does so well is that it puts the characters first and foremost. You understand their journey, you understand their pain, their wants and needs. They feel like real people. My friend that I went with said it felt like a true story to him because he could believe everything that was happening. And I agree. I mean, like sometimes you just watch a movie and you forget you're watching a movie, and that's great. Like those are the best times because you just feel like you're watching these real people go through something, authentic and genuine, and and you can just feel it, like in the performances and the story. And when you feel like you're not watching something that someone wrote on a page, that's when movies really hit hard and really get those emotional reactions out of us. And this movie gets that, especially in the first half. I really felt like everything was real, and it just totally immerses you into believing it's a true story, and maybe even that you're just like looking through a window to real people. And that is helped by the fact that the acting is also excellent, particularly from Adrian Brody, who I'm not that familiar with as an actor, to be honest. I think people do generally know of him, but I don't really. He absolutely deserves a Best Actor nomination, maybe even a win, really. Also great are Felicity Jones and Guy Pearce. They're also really good actors. I'm actually more familiar with them, and they do a very good job. Everyone just does a great job, though, overall. But I think Brody was easily my favorite. I mean, he just really is on another level. He has this accent the whole movie that just goes so naturally, and you don't really think twice about it. It just works. And he has this warmth to him, and every time he talks, you just really feel like he's saying something interesting. Really, really great performance. One of my favorites of the year for sure. I would not be shocked if he won, and if he did, I would say it's well deserved. And this is an excellent looking movie too. It was shot on VistaVision in 70mm. VistaVision has not been seen around for a long time. Very few movies are shot like that anymore. And to see this movie do it is awesome. It's one of the best looking movies I've seen in a long time. Just from the cinematography, the lighting, colors, it's beautiful. Like there are some truly breathtaking shots in here where I was just like, wow, that's awesome. I mean, and there were times I was like jealous of the 70mm people being like, dang, if I could watch that in 70mm, that would look even better probably. But it still looks really, really good. Great looking movie. It's very well edited too, and the score brings the whole thing home. I mean, you get a good sense of that during the opening credits, which even just the opening credits are honestly pretty riveting. I was like, just looking at this one shot of just like the road, and you just see like the credits sort of scroll across the screen. It looks awesome, and the score just really gets you excited. Like, oh, I'm gonna watch a good movie. Like it gets that feeling of like, all right, I can't wait to see what happens next. And that was really a good feeling to have. I also have to give the production design so much credit. Not only does it take you back several decades as a viewer, but lots of the movie itself is based around the production design and the buildings. I mean, literally, like the main character is an architect, so of course a lot of elements of this movie are really relying on the architecture being good and the way everything looks just also being like true to the time period it takes place in, which again is like very shortly after the Holocaust. There's a lot relying on this production design, and the production design really just knocks it out of the park. I mean, everything looks great. The buildings are impressive. Just really the designs in general are really good. I was very impressed by that. And the story, too, is equally impressive. It's about an architect who is trying to make a living in the U.S. And wants to bring his wife there, too, who is in another country. There's a few things at play. I don't really want to say too much because it is a story where, oddly enough, in this 3.5 hours, not that much happens, but also a lot happens at the same time. So I don't really want to say too much because it's one of those, I guess the best way I can put it is not a lot is happening, but when things do happen, they're very big things. And it just feels like a play maybe in that sense, like where it just has big plot points, but it's just a really nice story. I was very into it. I thought and it really makes you want to root for the characters. Like I really hope this guy gets happiness. I really hope, this other person gets what they want. You feel for everyone in the movie. You really do feel like these are all people going through real struggles, real problems, and you just want to see them hopefully make it out the other side in a good way, at least the ones who deserve it. And it's very well paced too, surprisingly. Again, the first half of this movie goes by very quickly. I couldn't believe nearly 2 hours had gone by once it ended. And when I say ended, that's because in a rare turn of events these days, This movie comes with a 15-minute intermission built into the movie, which is honestly pretty awesome. I used to be someone who's pretty against intermissions. I was like, I'm like, you're just cutting the movie off, and it's like a commercial break, It's like, you're invested in the movie, you want to keep watching it. I get that you have to go to the bathroom, but I used to kind of just be like, just suck it up, just watch the whole thing. In this case, it's actually pretty nice, because it is a very long movie, it's 3.5 hours, and it's built into the movie. So it comes at a nice time where the stories come to a halt a little bit. Not like literally, but like, it's kind of at a point where they can just let you take a breather, let you take a few minutes to get up, and it works. But it doesn't feel jarring, it comes at a good time, and gives you, as a viewer, enough time to get up and stretch, hit the bathroom, maybe get a refill on your popcorn or soda while you're at it. It was enough time. 15 minutes is pretty good. Like, I think they could have went, shorter. I'm glad they didn't. I think it was just like, especially at the theater I was at, this big IMAX, it's like the whole floor is the IMAX. There's only 2 bathrooms, one men and one women's, and if, the lines were crazy because it's like 500 people in the theater and you're just like waiting. I luckily got online very quickly, but even though there was a countdown on the screen, a decent amount of people still got back to the theater once the movie already started back up. Again, probably because of the bathroom line. Like, I think it took a really long time for people to get out. So I'm glad it was a long intermission. It didn't feel too long. It felt like just the right amount of time. But I do wish more movies actually had intermissions built in. I don't like them when it's sudden and not intended. Like, again, I don't like when it just feels like they're cutting it. I think in India, I want to say it is, they actually have an intermission. I want to say in all movies that are like a certain amount of time. Maybe they do it for all movies in general, but definitely the longer ones, I'm pretty sure they do. And I don't think I would like that here, because I don't want the movie to just stop at a random point. Like, I don't want it to just cut to black, right when it's getting good. I don't care if it's the end of a scene. I don't want it to just cut out. I want it to feel like, the filmmakers really, like, found a place, they put an intermission in, they thought it was a good time. That works to me. Like, that feels like a good time to do it. This movie, it works because it's really like 2 different movies, the first half and second half, so it just works. It feels like a play. In any case, the second half of this movie is still pretty good, but it's where most of my issues with the movie lie. A lot of it is in the third act especially. There are some weird and unexpected character choices that I think are trying to convey the themes of the movie, but they don't feel earned, and they also just don't feel set up. Like, there are a few things where I'm like, okay, maybe I could see that happening, but it's just a weird thing where it's like, they kind of hinted at some things, but you never thought they would end up paying off in the way they do. I just didn't really care for the way certain characters wrapped up a little bit. I didn't like the way it was, just kind of ending a few characters' stories that much. It seemed very ambiguous in a few cases. I just think, given how much the movie sets things up in like the first half and where they're supposed to go, I just wasn't totally satisfied with where they went. Maybe on a rewatch that'll feel different. Maybe like because once I know where they're going, I'll be able to see the signs more clearly. But just as a first time watch, I felt like the second half wasn't totally paying off the first half in the way I was hoping it would, and it didn't make me feel quite as satisfied as I was hoping to be. But it's still a well-made movie, and I think sitting on it for a few days has helped me to take more away from it. When I first walked out of the movie, I was much more negative, I think, on that second half. But giving it some more time, I've been able to sort of be like, okay, I can still kind of see now what it's going for. I can get on board with that a little bit. But I can still certainly see why this movie is getting so much praise, even with the extremely long runtime. I still recommend seeing it. It's definitely worth checking out, at the very least for the performances. And the intermission makes it easier to digest. If you're kind of hesitant because of that long runtime, I think it's still worth it. And honestly, this was a good movie. I mean, I do wish it was a little better. I think really if that first half was like the whole movie, that would be like top 5 of the year, easily for me. Because it's not, I don't know really if it even makes my top 10, but still, I think it's good. Definitely deserves the Best Picture nomination, and I would recommend seeing it. So I'm going to give this movie a B+. And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.